Hello, my sons. So I decided to make this video to ask you all the very important question of,
is Sonic the Hedgehog breedable?
did you not read the title? So you might be saying to yourself, Sonic 4, well, there was only one of those. And you would be wrong.
Sonic, of course, had the classic Sonic 1, 2, and 3, but when it came to making a fourth game, Sega seems to reevaluate what a fourth game is every so often that it could be kind of interpreted by anyone in the franchise, like what their Sonic 4 specifically could be. I noticed this pattern when scrapping my Sonic Origins script because it was...
boring and uninspired.
Yeah, I wanted to get the classic trilogy out of the way, but then I realized that everything I was writing was kind of uninspired and really not interesting. So it seemed more interesting to talk about this. To start off, let's talk about Sonic and Knuckles, the other half of Sonic 3. During its development, to meet the holiday release, Sonic 3 was split into two games, but it's basically just the same game with DLC before DLC was actually a thing. Some would consider Sonic 4 to be this title, potentially based on the fact that Sonic 3 was split into two games, but that's far from the case. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is always meant to be the complete experience. And sure, you could base it off of the name of the game or the timeline. It just feels like an actual continuation of Sonic 3. Sure, I get that, but the goal here is to understand the weird variations of what a Sonic 4 could be seen as, and since Sonic 3 and Knuckles is definitely not that, it's just something to point out, because I feel like someone will mention that at one point or another, being like, oh, I think Sonic 3... No, it's not. Don't think that.
Anyone who thinks that is wrong.
It was worth mentioning, though, just because of the weird development history. It's not a Sonic 4, but it was more interesting than my Sonic Origins review.
Ouch. My feelings. Alright, so instead of giving a big Sonic Origins classic game review right now, let's just quickly run through what I think of the original trilogy. Starting with...
Sonic 1!
First, the franchise can't give it that much crap. Also, Green Hill is like the only truly good level.
Sonic 2!
There was too much holy water put on this thing.
Sonic 3!
Take me back to Sonic 2.
Sonic and Knuckles!
The better half of a complete game.
Sonic 3 and Knuckles as a whole.
Just the right amount of holy water.
Alright, now with that out of the way, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this. Sega's first crack at Sonic 4 in the West. Well, a few could consider it to be Sonic CD. Sure, it's a side story, and the game also came out basically a year after the fact, making it a wildly impossible thing to consider to be Sonic 4. But my counter-argument to that is...
did anyone truly own a Sega CD?
If your answer to that is no, congratulations, you would be correct. The sales number are as high as my self-esteem. Pretty darn low. Most people's first instance with Sonic CD was on the Gems collection for GameCube.
You know what? It's better to be called a Scott the Woz clone than an IGN reviewer.
Or, if you didn't play that, you probably played the Christian Whitehead version, which, by all accounts, is definitely the superior version. I threw this on here because the perception of what a Sonic 4 could be seen here just because no one actually had the chance to play it. It incorporates the Spin Dash from Sonic 2, and adds the Super Peel-Out move. That was added to Sonic's repertoire of moves, making it look like the characters progressed and added new characters, including Metal Sonic, probably the coolest villain in the entire franchise, in my opinion, of course, and Amy Rose, Sonic's not-so-love interest. Yeah, I guess the Jessica Rabbit idea didn't fly during Sega's initial stages during the 90s. The reason this was scarce in the first place was, of course, because of Sega splitting things between Sega of America and Sega of Japan, those who worked on Sonic 3, and those who worked on Sonic CD. After producing Sonic 2, cutting the development team did hinder Sonic CD, in my opinion, because how much is reused here is pretty interesting considering the past and present and future timelines of this game. It's literally just retextured pixel work, like, it doesn't really have any bearing on the story. You could take God knows how many routes in this game. Depending on what route you take, you can get to the end of whatever of the less than handful endings you get in this game. The only thing you really have to go out of your way for are the time stones. Also, no, this is definitely not the first time Sega split their development team.
So, Sonic CD could be considered, to some, a Sonic 4 based on the initial scarcity, the price of the Sega CD, and the popularity of it just kind of dwindling and not really existing here in the West, and especially overseas as well. I don't think it was even popular there. But I will say this. It is not a Sonic 4, even though it did give advancements in the franchise, such as the Spin Dash and the Super Peel Out and all that other stuff. It just doesn't scream Sonic 4 to me. Sure, it had its progressive stance, but, you know, to me, it was just more of a side quest that I rarely played. But it's okay. What about... Oh no.
Probably the worst rated game on this crusade of Sonic Ventures. It's actually the only one aptly named Sonic 4, Episode 1.
I'm sure this'll end up fine.
3 hours later.
It really wasn't. It really was not.
And Sega doesn't make this thing easy to actually play either. Let's start off with the fact that there's a Windows Vista and XP version. Okay, sure. And if you want to convert that, you need a JavaScript 1.6.0. And if you finally download that after fishing through Java's list of freaking installs because you accidentally clicked out of it thinking it was a pop-up, you might not even get to play it because Sega hasn't even patched this game yet. You have to try and find older software just to play this old software. After trying a few fan workarounds, you finally got fed up, and you finally just decided to port your legally obtained version of the WiiWare Virtual Console port on Dolphin just to try that, and then get fed up with that because you don't have any kind of controller configurations proper on that. So then, okay, fine, you screw around with something else. Oh, let's try Xenia, an Xbox 360 one from a totally legally gotten source. Then you pray it works, only for it to not actually work because you probably did something wrong because you've never used Xenia before. And of course that's legally obtained too. I'm a Sonic fan. I of course have to buy each game more than once. All because Steam does not want to work with your already old 2019 desktop with parts from 2018 and other parts from 2017 because you have an old computer and you thought that this old game would work, but clearly it wouldn't. And there's still no momentum in this game, just like Forces. Okay, fine, I'm good.
Okay, so, eventually, it got stuck on my horizontal monitor, and I tried finagling with it for, I don't know, I have to check the time, as of recording this, just because I don't even know what time it is. My god. Anyway, in post, I'll tell you. But this was like, who thought PC gaming was easier? I'm gonna be genuinely honest. It was not fun. Why Sega hasn't updated this, I don't know, but I own it. And I'm kind of mad that if I get a more modern computer, it's probably gonna be the same issue. It most likely is not gonna work. I don't know. But who said PC gaming was easier? Just... yeah!
Hey, this is you in post-editing. You had spent a total of 4 hours and 20-something minutes, 23 minutes exactly, in order to fix this. So I just want you to know how much time and energy this actually took to play this one terrible game. So if you could do me a favor and like, comment, and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. Yes, I said subscribe. Thank you, my sons, for correcting me in the comments. Okay, bye. Sonic 4, Episode 1 actually tries to mimic the classics while adding a modern twist, like the homing attack, which you use over and over again, like it's going out of style. I've had enough of this game just thinking about it. However, it follows the classic formula in terms of levels that lead to a boss, but this time you actually choose where you get to go. The thing is, there isn't much game here. There's less worlds here than there were in the classic games, and certainly less levels than Sonic CD. It's like they cut the game down and minimized it so much. They cut their Star Child down and gave it the modern McDonald treatment, because there's virtually nothing here. Wow, such modern innovation. I wonder if this is where Cracker Barrel took its rebrand notes from. The gameplay here is just absolutely terrible. Not only is there no momentum for, quote, a classic Sonic game, however, the story itself seems so bland, like this game was made in the 2010s, sure, but you could have done a little more than rehash the same bells and whistles, like congrats, you added the homing attack, but why does the spin dash suck?
But hey, maybe they patched it out. Maybe it's good now. Or they just decided to put a band-aid on a really big wound.
Sonic 4, Episode 2, a game where they added Tails to try and cool down this already terrible game with some fairly cool mechanics that seem kind of pointless when you really think about it. trying to capture the magic of Sonic 2, so you're just gonna try and hash out a new trilogy, just like that? Yeah, this was the nail in the coffin for revitalizing the, quote, classic franchise. Sonic followed a number of series for a good reason, but regardless, overall, this one had very little reception, just because the first one was so bad that by the time the second one came out and it fixed a little bit of the issues from the first one, it still wasn't good, especially since you had to split the product into 3 acts. Yeah, I could talk about the third part, except, well...
Ooh, it was canceled.
Yeah, the development of this game was so short-lived because most people were shocked that they even put this into existence. Most people were still shocked that this game got a sequel, let alone they were going to try and make a trilogy out of it. However, it was supposed to feature Knuckles giving a Team Sonic vibe, which they already did that in another game centered around this idea.
I am so glad Sega is doing good now. This was a bad time.
Next, we have Sonic Superstars, and though I don't consider it a proper Sonic 4, it did have some backing to have such a claim. When I say a lot of backing, I don't really mean the fact that it was a 2D platformer. sorry, a 2.5D platformer. Remember, I'm fairly educated in this matter.
I'm not qualified for anything.
It's just a piece of paper. But this platformer was given 2D gameplay. It had Takashi Iizuka, Naoto Oshima, and Jun Senoi working on the project, who all work on the classics at some point or another, meaning this could be seen as a continuation of their work, being that the original trilogy was basically what they worked on. I don't think any Sonic fan like myself sees Sonic Superstars as the true Sonic 4, but maybe the developers do in some weird, sentimental way, and it was worth noting. Also, loathe Trip's levels. Full power, love the dragon stuff, but her level design can go kick rocks. Lastly, we have Sonic Mania, a game that literally needs little introduction. Not only is it one of the best-selling Sonic games of all time, but it's one of the most revered and the highest-rated Sonic games by the most important people, the fans.
Oh, that's me.
The only gripes I really ever had with this were the blue sphere stages, just because I really can't handle the motion sickness, and that's just a personal problem. And of course, that Green Hill is still the first stage and reuses a lot of other stages, but does it in a unique way to where I don't really care. So for me, this is definitely a 9.5 out of 10. So what did IGN give it?
You know what? I shouldn't be surprised. It's IGN.
It would make sense that this game is underappreciated by critics. After all, this was made by fans for fans, as the game's slogan is. And it's definitely not an understatement, because this got not only a type of sequel, but I guess a small DLC pack is what you would call it, bringing 2 new characters in that were long since thought to be dead, made by Headcanon and, of course, Christian Whitehead. Oh, there he is again. That second name should definitely be familiar to anyone who's played those Sonic games on mobile. Honestly, giving these guys the keys to the Sonic Kingdom was probably the best move for Sega, seeing as the next game in the franchise was...
You know what? I miss the time when Sega used to tell jokes.
Yeah, Sega really does what Nintendo don't, because Nintendo really could take a few notes from these guys. It made them so much money just from this one game alone, so you might be asking yourself, though, why anyone would see this as a proper Sonic 4? Well, for starters, let's talk about the pixel art. You could probably run this game on a Sega Genesis if you really wanted to. Also, it's not that taxing to really run on any other hardware. It also has a relatively small file size. And even though, unlike Superstars, it's not made by any of the original developers, these guys probably have a stronger sense of what a Sonic game would feel like in the classic Sonic style. Heck, they probably know what a classic Sonic game feels more like than most Sega developers right now. It was literally perfect because it was just a team of fans given money, the legal rights, and of course, basically a few minor roles from Sega. Even in the animation, you could see them going up the elevator passing Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles, which would lead them to Mania, so I guess it's kind of their little subtle way of saying, ha, this is Sonic 4. And even though CD is a side quest and Knuckles is more of a DLC before that was a thing, respectively, in theory, I think Sonic Mania is probably the true Sonic 4. At least according to me, and how I interpret giving this little popular reception. Its art style continues the formula. It adds the drop dash, which is just a continuation of Sonic's moveset. It adds more of those classic characters.
Well, except Amy.
but also the game's pixel art style really sets up the next generation of developers with a very high bar to deal with if they don't want to get Christian Whitehead and headcanon back. They look to the past for answers to the future, and again, this is amazing. Studiopolis is probably the best 2D Sonic stage in my opinion. I also feel like developers didn't even really get a chance to test their true creativity, especially since some of the music is just so clean. And even though they were slightly held back from Sega, I really do think, though, that the idea of a true Sonic 4 boils down to each and every single fan to determine what their specific Sonic 4 is. No, I said 4 is, not forces.
Well, my sons, that is another episode down, and of course, literally the only health tip I can give you, or thing I should recommend as, your internet pops, is go for a jog. This was a Sonic episode. You didn't think I was going to tell you to hit some cardio on the way out? No way! Of course I was! Anyway, guys, you have an awesome day, and see you guys next time.